Now that the interest rates have gone up, you feel like you have to buy a smaller home. What do? Stay tuned. So it is true. The interest rates have gone up. The economy is not great. Inflation is on the rise. And buyers that are looking right now to buy a home are faced with the reality that the mortgage that they could have gotten approved for even a month or two ago is not the same amount. And so they're looking at having to buy a smaller home. That can be hard to adjust to, but there are some advantages to buying a smaller home. If you absolutely are buying right now and you have to buy a smaller home, don't feel like all is lost, because there are some advantages to buying a smaller home. So let me just run through a couple of those things that maybe you didn't think about, and hopefully it'll make the process a little easier for you. So the house that you're looking to buy, if it's smaller, will probably be less expensive, right? That's why you're going that route, because you can get approved for that. But it's not just the cost of the house, the purchase price. Down the road, it should be cheaper. Your utilities will probably be cheaper. Your maintenance for your home would be cheaper. Your insurance for that home, because it's less square footage, would be cheaper. So, and maintaining it all the way around, if you have to put a new roof on at some point, it's a smaller roof, it's going to be cheaper. So the long game, it's cheaper all the way down the line. So that's a benefit. The maintenance on it, which I just talked about, should be cheaper. Not only will the roof be cheaper, but the things in the house are probably smaller, and so that's less. If you need to replace carpeting, if you need to replace flooring, to do that will be cheaper in a smaller home. So those costs will be less down the line. So that's a benefit. Another thing, and take it from me, who has lived in a lot of different homes and has a lot of stuff that we probably don't need. In a smaller home, it's going to be easier to not clutter it all up, right? You will not have as much because you won't have as much room, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, the older I get, the more I feel like I need to declutter. There's just too much stuff. And when you have too much stuff, it's a lot of worry about maintaining that stuff and where you put it and what you do with all of that. There are things that sit here that we haven't used in years. And so even though we tend to be of that nature where we want more and more and more, sometimes it feels a little bit better to not have all that stuff. And sometimes it can be kind of freeing, right? Because again, the worry with, if you have a lot of things, you know, you have to insure them, you have to maintain them, you worry about being able to maintain them, and it's kind of like a treadmill there. So in a smaller home, there's less space, so you're going to have less things. You won't have to worry about decluttering as frequently because you won't have as much clutter. So that is a benefit. Another thing which some people don't think is a benefit, but if you think about it, maybe it will be, in a smaller space, families are together all the time. And so maybe it leads to creating better family bonds. Now, some people might say, nope, I don't want to be around those people. I don't want to be around my siblings as much or whatever. But I remember growing up, you know, we lived in an area where there wasn't a lot, and there were a lot of families that had big families, and we were in small homes, and everyone was crowded around together, and those families are pretty tight-knit, even still today. So, I don't know, even if it's something that you didn't think you wanted, maybe it will create something beautiful for you. So, something to consider. And ultimately, when you pay less, you will be less in debt, and you will be taking less risk. And that in and of itself can make you feel better. So if you've been, told you've been approved by a mortgage lender, or you were a couple of months ago, for a $400,000 home. And then all of a sudden they're telling you, no, you don't qualify for that anymore. What you have to remember too is when they're doing the mortgage calculations, if you go online and you put that number in, they're going to approve you for up to about 28% of what you have. And so, yeah, you could do it, but if you can do it at 15, 18, 20%, why wouldn't you? And sometimes people try to convince you that, yes, you can afford this. I don't feel that way. When I have my buyers, when I'm working with my buyers, I want them to feel comfortable in what they're spending for that house and what they're going to spend in that house as they live their lives there. And so you might be approved for a certain amount, but is that what you want to spend? And right now, some people are being forced to, because of the economy, because of the interest rates, you're being forced to look at that. So if you find yourself in the situation where you have to buy a house right now and your lender told you that you're not going to be able to be approved for as much as you thought, so therefore you have to buy a smaller home, all is not lost. There are benefits to buying a smaller home. If you have any questions, you can send me an email at sharonrosa@kw.com. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Subscribe at the bottom of the page, and I will see you here next Friday. Have a great week.